We have Nik the Carney Lentz in his second booking this month, taking on Movsar Evloev. And if you have a look at the Tapology page, the UFC page of Nik Lentz, he had a booking earlier on in the month. Unfortunate that that one was canceled. He was supposed to be taking on England's Mike Grundy. Grundy and his team out due to COVID issues. In steps Russia's Movsar Evloev as a huge favorite, I might add, in this fight. And Matt, in our original analysis of the Grundy fight with Nik Lentz, it's kind of similar in the Movsar Evloev fight, just due to the fact that all three of those fighters, A, have connections between them, but B, they're all wrestlers of different sorts. Nik Lentz in this fight, a Division I fighter out of the University of Minnesota from back in his college days. Movsar Evloev, a master of sport in Greco-Roman wrestling, and for what it's worth, you had a Commonwealth Games medalist in Mike Grundy, who's already had a fight against Movsar Evloev. It just happens to be that that was Movsar Evloev's last fight in a win. And for Mike Grundy, broke his jaw in that fight. Movsar, obviously, again, the winner. For Nik Lentz, though, when he was going to be taking on Mike Grundy, we had mentioned the fact that Nik Lentz really sneaky chokes, and I get it, out of his last three fights, he's only 2-3. But you look at the level of competition. A loss to David Tamor, one of the Tamor brothers. Watch out for your underwears. Another loss to Charles Oliveira, 0-3, if you don't count the no contest. And a loss to Arnold Allen by decision, his last one. Nik Lentz has talked about it out in the media. The fact that after the Arnold Allen fight, he had major eye issues, was almost thought to possibly lose an eye. But coming back here in competition, down at featherweight, and you have to really throw that one in here, this is a very good fight, and it's a very interesting fight here.
I don't think this is a very good fight. Nik Lentz versus Mike Grundy would have been a good fight because you had Grundy, I had Lentz. We can agree it's a close fight. This is not going to be that. And I know I'm kind of giving my prediction away early, but you saw what Movsar Evloev was able to do to Mike Grundy. And I do think Nik Lentz, again, I thought Nik Lentz was going to beat Mike Grundy. But my main key for that fight was Mike Grundy's going to be shooting on Nik Lentz, not the other way around. And Nik Lentz has a phenomenal guillotine. It's just one of those submissions where he's got a great feel for it. No matter where you are, he can hit it. Movsar Evloev's not going to even give him the opportunity to get into that position. He's too smart of a grappler and too smart of a wrestler, to be quite honest. He's not going to just shoot for lazy double legs and get his head in bad positions. He can clinch, he can get single legs. And the thing I really like about Evloev too, if he knows he won't get the takedown, he won't just exert energy still going for more takedowns. And we talk about chain wrestling. I think he's a very smart chain wrestler where if he can get that one leg and he feels like you are off balance, he will start to go for other submissions. Takedowns. But if he notices that, okay, this isn't going to work, he is defending it quite well, he'll just reset and find another entry. And that's something you don't see a lot from wrestlers. It's, okay, the second I'm within range, I'm now in wrestling mode, and I'm just going to keep that up. Evloev is really smart where he won't tire himself out doing that. It's a big problem. I know we're going to talk about it with old Andrew Sanchez later, but really good wrestlers have this knack where I'm so good at wrestling, I end up tiring myself out. And it's really, like, Justin Gaethje doesn't wrestle in fights because wrestling makes him more tired than striking does. Evloev won't get into that issue, whereas I'm going to out-wrestle Nik Lentz for 2 rounds, and then that veteran savvy of Nik Lentz might be able to be sort of the equalizer in the third. I don't really know what Nik Lentz can do in this fight to keep Evloev off of him. I know in the Gray Maynard fight, and in Gray Maynard's prime, you might be able to argue he fought a little bit like Evloev, but Gray Maynard's prime was when I was in middle school, so that was over 10 years ago. He beats the brakes off him. I like the Scott Holtzman win, but Scott Holtzman's not a wrestler, and he doesn't really have good takedown defense. So the way in which Nik Lentz beat Scott Holtzman, I will admit Holtzman's a nice win, but the way he was able to beat him is really the blueprint for a lot of guys. It's not like he went out there and spinning back fisted him like he was Benil Dariush. I think there might be a few different areas. If Nik Lentz can catch him with a really nice crisp hand, he might be able to hurt him and then start going for his own wrestling game. I just don't really know what Nik Lentz is going to be able to do to get this fight in a position where he can win it.
It's really tricky, if you're trying to pick out ways in which Nik Lentz can win. And if you want to go back to, again, another good win, the Will Brooks win. And I know we talk about it here with Fight Night Picks. There's a Will Brooks picture here somewhere in the office. He is here. But former Bellator champ, again, has wins over, the guy that's in our co-main event coming up tonight and Michael Chandler. But that was a good win for Nik Lentz. But again, that one was up at 155 pounds. And that's the thing. Nik Lentz has bounced between 55 and 45 for a majority of his career. And he has good wins here and there. It's just really tricky to try and figure out a way for Nik Lentz to beat such a dynamic guy like Movsar Evloev. Because for me, I look at Evloev as a guy that M1 champions that have come into the UFC have really been a mixed bag. I mean, let's start picking on some of them. You've got a guy like Alexander Volkov at heavyweight. Well, he was good with M1. He's been good with UFC. You've got a guy like Marcin Tabora. Well, he's been all right. Then you've got guys like Roman Bogatov.
Don't ever talk shit about my boy Marcin again.
A one-hitter quitter against, my big guy, Leonardo Santos, but he kept hitting them in the nuts, and then he got kicked out of the UFC. But you really have had a mixed bag of M1 champions so far. Movsar Evloev, he's just a shade under 27 years old. This is a guy that I think we'll see ranked at 145 pounds, and it seems like a fight that's a no-brainer for him to take because he's similar to a lot of fighters that, and we talked about this before he came on air, that have somewhat mastered a skill set. And for Movsar Evloev, you're a master sport in Greco-Roman wrestling, but we've seen the proofs in the pudding with his fights. He is such a good wrestler. He's so good in the scrambles. He's going to beat the majority of the fighters that he goes up against and wrestles. And I say that like all the way up the chain at 145 pounds. Like I could see the Volkanovski.
Okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Volkanovski's going to give him a hard time. You can go down through 45. There's going to be guys that give him a hard time, but this guy is a great wrestler, and he's going to really hang with a lot of the best of them. The other thing that he's really brought together, especially training out of Tiger Muay Thai, and we've seen him spend time in American Top Team as well. I love how he's starting to round out his game and really add to those strikes that he's able to throw in the cage. He throws a lot of spinning stuff. He throws a lot of nice kicks as well. He's one of the more dynamic guys that we have in the UFC. So again...
Were you guys childhood friends?
Me and Movsar, Craig and Movsar. If we have a look at the odds, I said, Matt, this is one of the biggest discrepancies that we have. Movsar Evloev open a minus 400 favorite. He's now minus 440. For Nik Lentz, open a plus 300. He's now a plus 328. And if we have a look at the votes on Tapology, 405 of them so far, 92% going with Evloev, 79% pick him to win by decision. Now, Matt, we have to say, back last weekend, you had the Cater Holloway card. The main card opened up with 3 huge underdogs cashing in a row. So it makes you a little bit leery, but I really do like the heavy favorite in this one in Movsar Evloev. It's one of those fights where, again, he's too much of a favorite for me to want to throw him on a parlay or to really even have him as a single, but I do like him to get the win here because, again, I've really kind of shown it early on, me and my childhood friend Movsar.
I was going to say, you basically said he could beat Edson Barbosa.
I've been high on Movsar Evloev for a long time, so it's hard not to pick him to win in this fight.
I agree with pretty much everything Craig said. He got a little wild with the Movsar Evloev praise near the end of that, but I do agree. Nik Lentz is a good litmus test. You know he's a tough guy. He's a good wrestler. He's a good striker, and he will show you. We're going to learn a lot about Movsar Evloev in this fight. He will face at least some adversity, I'm sure. He's going to be going for takedowns, and Nik Lentz is going to have a good defense for them. He's going to get hit on the feet. But from what we saw from those underdog wins last weekend, it was a lot of striking matchups, and against strikers, anything could happen. Anyone can knock anyone out at any time with one punch. Between two grapplers, a little bit different. It's harder to just catch a guy in a guillotine or just catch a guy in a triangle choke. I really like Evloev in this fight.
Matt, really looking forward to this fight. We're both going with Russia's Movsar Evloev to get the win. Our next fight, Aldierte Sanchez take on Mahmoud Muradov. That should be a great one. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. As we always say, let's get into it.